degree of difficulty factor.
Right. Somebody else has your notes.
So good afternoon, or good morning, I guess. We are here today from BCO Consulting. My name is Megan O'Malley. This is my colleague, Sarah Carrett. BCO Consulting is a private consulting firm for international companies. We specialize in legal, financial, and ethical consulting. We're here today because you, Colgate-Palmolive's board of directors, asked us to investigate a specific chemical used in your product, Colgate Total. This chemical, called triclosan, has been brought to your attention because of the upcoming report by the FDA on triclosan safety. You have asked us to research the truth behind this product and to recommend a best course of action in light of this upcoming study. In the course of our research, we have found legal, ethical, and financial issues directly in conflict with your statement of core values. This statement reads, our three fundamental values, caring, global teamwork, and continuous improvement, are a part of everything we do. Each of these values is specified further on your website, and I will highlight these specifications. Your core value of caring commits you to the protection and fair treatment of certain groups. These groups are your customers, the global environment, your employees, your shareholders, and your business partners. Throughout our presentation, we will touch upon all of these groups and discuss how they are directly affected by triclosan. The second core value that is relevant to our presentation is that of continuous improvement. This core value commits you to getting better every day and continuously working to innovate and improve your products in light of the better understanding of consumer expectations. It is clear to us that you are dedicated to this value. If you were not, we wouldn't be here talking to you today. We encourage you to continue this trend of proactivity and advancement. In light of these values and how triclosan is in conflict with them, BCO will recommend at the end of this presentation that you remove triclosan from your product, Colgate Total. But that's for later. Right now, the question on your minds is probably, what is triclosan and what does it do? And that's what my colleague, Sarah Carrett, is here to talk to you about right now. So first we're going to go over what exactly your product is and why it came to be. Most of your toothpaste just contain one active ingredient, sodium fluoride, but this product, Colgate Total, is one that you advertise as specially working to fight gingivitis. Not only does it prevent plaque buildup like all of your other toothpaste, but this one kills the bacteria that cause gingivitis. It offers 12-hour protection, so you tell your customers that they just brush their teeth once in the morning, you're fighting germs all day long. And this is great, this is innovative, this is exactly what your core values are striving for, is to find new ways to help your customers. We want to make sure that in helping your customers, you're not also harming them in a way that could be potentially greater. So your second active ingredient, triclosan, which is represented in 0.3% of your products, is the one that we'll be looking at further. So this is the chemical triclosan. Its function in the product is to be an anti-gingivitis, antibacterial agent. You introduced this chemical to get a competitive edge over your competitors like Crest, who don't use any antibacterials in their toothpaste. Now, the potential risks associated with using this chemical lie mainly on the fact that this is an antibacterial. This means that it's killing the bacteria that are actively working in your mouth, and some of the effects of being a biocide are harmful to both the environment and to your customers directly. So the harms and benefits to your customers. The benefits, as we've discussed, are that it's an anti-gingivitis agent. It gives you an edge over your competitors, and it's great for your customers if it works and it's not truly harming them. The risk, however, is that in some animal studies, this has been found to be an endocrine disruptor. It works by inhibiting the thyroid hormone and affecting thyroid metabolism. While in humans this hasn't directly been proven and correlated, the risk of something translating from animal studies to future human studies is there. Also, it affects the central nervous system. It acts as a depressant and and acting as a depressant. In young children, it's been shown to be linked to allergy development. Things simple as hay fever in children. If the parents find symptoms linked to this, they can trace them back to your company. And the fact that 2010 studies, 2006 studies, and 2008 studies have all linked allergies to this chemical. Also in pregnancies and newborns, the chemical has been found present in umbilical cords. And this would indicate that in getting nutrients to the unborn fetus, you might also be delivering this chemical with things that are needed for development. So in terms of the environment, this is an antibacteria, which means that in killing the bacteria, it is also classified as a biocide. For humans, this biocide may not be harmful in the concentrations, but when it gets washed down the drains and into the sewer, it is not filtered out by water treatment plants. In fact, in a study where they took caged fish and placed them downstream from a water treatment plant, they found extremely high levels of triclosan present in the bile of these fish. 95% of the triclosan that is found in streams and oceans is thought to be linked to residential drains. This means that even if your company isn't dumping harmful chemicals in the fresh water, your customers are, and you are contributing to this. Triclosan is highly stable. It does not dissolve in water, it only dissolves in non-polar chemical solvents. This means that it will never break down, or it will take a very, very long time to break down if just left in fresh water and untreated with special chemicals that would be even more harmful to the environment to put into the freshwater streams. When it does break down, its chemical side effect is methyltriclosan, which ironically is actually more bioaccumulative than triclosan is to begin with. So this means that it is even harder to dissolve further and is just as harmful in building up within the fish and has been found in the bile of fish as well. So triclosan is not just found in the fish, has been found in the algae growing alongside of streams and in lakes. This means that it's in the primary producers in your marine ecosystem. So when the sun comes down to Earth, its energy is first translated by plants. The plants give their energies to the herbivores that eat them, and then the carnivores get their energy from the herbivores. This is the chain that gives energy to even humans. The fact that our primary producers have this chemical in them means that it's going to be carried up the food chain. This weakens the aquatic ecosystem by putting the chemical in the very foundations of their ecosystem. And again, a Swedish study from 2006 found that there are very high levels of triclosan in fish that have been placed downstream of water treatment plants, and then also in lakes, fish have been found to be containing triclosan. And it is an endocrine disruptor in these fishes as well. And now Megan O'Malley will talk to you about the legal trends and how the use of triclosan in your product is affecting not only your customers and the environment who you account for in your mission statement and core values, but also your own people, your own employees and shareholders and business partners. Thank you.
So your shareholders, your business partners, and also your employees are going to be most affected by any type of legal change or financial change, whether it's in your company or in the state of triclosan. So I'm going to highlight a few of the legal trends that we've seen across the world, because this isn't an issue just in the United States. Pretty much every developed world that uses triclosan has developed some type of law or restriction in the use of triclosan. So I'm going to start with reevaluations. So in the United States, there have been different reevaluations from the EPA and the FDA. The EPA in 2008 did an exposure assessment study, but due to new complaints, they're gonna begin a new study in 2013 based on long-term exposure and any type of complaint that's come across. They're going to reassess. The studies that we're most concerned about, though, are the studies by the FDA. In 1997, they did a gingivitis study that proved that yes, triclosan is effective in killing gingivitis. And so that's why Colgate will say that our toothpaste is the only FDA-approved toothpaste to kill gingivitis. So Colgate Total actually kills gingivitis once you have it, instead of just preventing it like the other toothpaste. So it gives you a competitive edge. The problem is that the FDA hasn't looked into the safety of triclosan quite yet. And that's what their 2011 study is about. They're reevaluating the safety based on all of the complaints that have been coming about, and the complaints that triclosan may be an endocrine disruptor, like Mrs. Carrett talked about. So the next trend that we've seen is restrictions. In the European Union, they've restricted triclosan, and it can't be used in any surface that may come into contact with food for consumption. So it's interesting that you can't use triclosan in a place that would come into contact with food, but we can use it in toothpaste. Also, you're not allowed to use triclosan in cosmetics except for in very small percentages, and that's where this 0.3% maximum percentage comes into play. The European Union has mandated that you can't use it in any percentage more than 0.3% if it's coming into contact with humans, and that's the percentage that we see in Colgate Total. But they still don't allow it to be used in contact with food. So another trend that we've seen is advisories and warning labels. In Australia, they put warning labels like this on anything that contains triclosan. And these warning labels say that children under the age of 12 really should reconsider using something else. So in Australia, they really don't want their children using triclosan. And these warning labels are, I don't know if I'd buy something with these kind of warning labels on them anyways. There have been other places that have published studies that there are possibilities of legitimate and environmental health effects. And those places are Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and Finland. And so they've issued actual consumer advisories saying that triclosan may do these things. They may have environmental health effects. So the last trend that we've seen is places where they've actually placed extreme restrictions on triclosan, and that it should be, and it says that the use of triclosan should be reduced to the most necessary and critically sterile environments, such as hospitals. So they don't want this used anywhere other than hospitals. So we think that's pretty strict as well. So I'm going to talk to you about two different products, and both of these companies have had situations that are kind of similar to yours. So there's Nalgene and then there's Zicam. So what happened with Nalgene is that their bottles used to contain BPA. And so in 2007, REI and basically the REI of Canada removed any BPA-containing water bottles from their shelves. And this was a trend that was seen across the States and in Europe, that they just removed these products that contained BPA because they didn't think they were safe based on studies. And so BPA also was some type of endocrine disruptor, and it mimics estrogen. So that's why all of these camping stores took it off their shelves. So what Nalgene did is that they voluntarily removed BPA from their bottles, and they came out with a BPA-free line. And so they saw some type of hits in the fact that people didn't buy their old BPA-containing bottles. But as of now, people still buy Nalgene bottles, and they think it's a great company because they did the right thing. They saw where the trends were going, and BPA today is still not illegal. So they took it out, but there are still things that contain BPA, which is why you see bottles that are marked BPA-free. So that's what Nalgene did, and people really respect them for that. Now there's this other company called Zicam, and Zicam made a nasal spray that was supposed to get rid of a cold. It's supposed to get rid of a cold, but in fact, it was actually taking away people's sense of smell. So that was bad, and people had filed lawsuits, and they had made many complaints, and so Zicam knew about this. They knew that this was happening to their customers, and they kept saying, this is not our product, this is something that's just happening to you. So what happened to them is that in 2009, the FDA actually said that, yes, it is your product that is taking away their sense of smell. And the FDA ordered them to take all of their nasal sprays off of the shelves. So Zicam didn't listen to its customers. And in the end, Zicam and the company that produced these cold remedies, Matrix, Together, they lost over $55 million. So we really want you to look at these two companies and how they handled situations that were similar, where their products were potentially harming customers. I mean, Zicam's was a little more straightforward, but Nalgene is a company that we really want you to look to, and this is the kind of thing that we want you to do with Colgate Total now. So, leading into that, we have some financial considerations for you. Colgate is a global company. You sell your toothpaste all around the world. The toothpaste market is a $12 billion market, and Colgate has 45% of that market. So Colgate is making a lot of money every single year. The interesting thing is that Colgate Total is your best-selling toothpaste. So Colgate Total itself makes up 30% of the toothpaste market. So 1/3 of all toothpaste sold are Colgate Total. So that makes Colgate Total a $3 billion product per year. So even if you push for sales and you advertise your other products, you're going to take a large hit if the FDA comes out with the fact that triclosan may be harming consumers. So you could then pull your product off the shelves, which is probably what the FDA would have you do, and you could re-advertise, you could come out with a new product, but we don't want that to happen to you. What we want you to do is to preempt this decision with some type of action. Because even if the FDA doesn't declare triclosan as definitively harmful, your customers are going to ask, why did they have to investigate this chemical in my toothpaste in the first place? And the problem is that the first thing they're going to do is they're going to go on the internet. They're going to be like, what is this product? And when they Google triclosan, they are bombarded with a slew of websites that say triclosan is terrible, never use triclosan. You need to avoid all of these products that contain triclosan. And your products are contained on that list of products that they should never use. So what we want you to do is to take some type of action that will lessen your financial losses. So while these financial considerations are the most negative if the FDA declares Total unsafe, there are other considerations that you need to make. You've made a commitment to continual improvement of your products within your core values. And so Mrs. Karat is going to come up and she's going to discuss these continuous improvements further with you.
In your mission statement, you make a strong commitment to continuously improving your company. You say that you want to hear from your customers, you want to study your customers so that you know what their needs are and you're best serving them. We think that in order to become the best, as you say, your goal is, we think that you need to keep with these innovative ideas, keep with the original toothpaste, but we don't want you to risk harming your customers, and we don't want your customers to be confused about their safety. We want them to be confident and keep that trust that they have with Colgate Total and Colgate as a company. So we challenge you to continue improving your company. We want you to have the courage to step back and look at this product and say, even though this is our #1 selling product, is this something we should be selling? So our recommendation is that you remove triclosan from your products. We would like to see that you phase triclosan out of your shelving, and we don't want your customers to be consuming this from your products. We also think that if you amend your research goals, instead of focusing on how your products could be good, instead of saying we have 75 studies that show that this triclosan can kill bacteria, we would love to see you do research to see if this chemical is harming your customers and if your toothpaste, could be better instead of justifying that they are good. We want you to also encourage good health practices, not just in the third world countries where your company does continuous service, but also in the United States and in the places where your company sells the most product. We think that if your customers knew that the reason these other toothpastes can market that they are anti-gingivitis is because they also market good health practices, such as good nutrition and brushing your teeth regularly, that they can be fighting gingivitis that way too. and that your toothpaste is just as helpful in fighting gingivitis even without this antibacterial agent. And now we'd like to answer any questions that you have.
I'd like to start with somewhat of an ethical quandary that I'm in. I should explain that while I'm on the board, I do work for Colgate Palmolive as an hourly employee. I'm actually independently wealthy, and I'm on the board because with my own money I have this huge position of stock and, muscle my way on the board. But my allegiance then is to the other people who work on the line with me, other hourly employees. And I certainly recognize the fact that there may be some risks here, risks of harm to health of consumers. But when you put that $3.6 billion number up, and that the first thing that came to mind on that is that if we change the product in such a way that people stop buying it, and it becomes less effective for treating gingivitis, that translates into lost jobs. And so my concern is that we, in trying to deal with one potential risk of harm for consumers, we end up hurting employees. And I appreciate the fact that if you Google triclosan, you get all kinds of bad news. But I'm thinking, that bad news is already up there, and we aren't seeing a big drop in sales. And so I'm kind of on the horns of a dilemma here. I'm thinking, gee, I want to protect consumers, but I also want to protect the other people who work in the factory with me. So help me out on this one.
Okay, so I guess the way to address that is yes, you do have a responsibility to your employees, and there may be lost jobs. But I think as a company that provides a product to a consumer, I think your real first obligation is to them. So if you as a company have put something on the market that may not be safe, what you need to do is kind of think about it as, do we hurt the people outside of our company, or do we hurt the people inside of our company? And we don't believe, as a consulting group, that you will completely lose your place in the market if you change Colgate Total. So like take the example of Nalgene. They changed their bottles and they were fine. So there are other ways that you can change your product that won't completely lose your place in the market. But I think as a company that provides a product to a consumer that doesn't know about the true effects of this, and that you're also providing this product, I guess, in a way to the environment, and they have absolutely no say in it. So I think if the ethical dilemma is between hurting people who aren't quite sure of what they're getting and potentially harming people within your own company, I think the customers have to win here. I think the customers have to win this battle of who do we protect first? Do we protect people from harm, actual physical harm, or do we try and save our own employees? I mean, that's definitely a dilemma, and that's the biggest problem in this case, where you're going to come across, you may lose some jobs, but in the end, you don't want to harm your customers, because then you'll lose your whole company.
Now the question following that question would be, so if your recommendation is that we remove the product that has the triclosan in it, do we have some easy alternatives where there's a number 2 that's right behind it? I think you said 45% of our market, of the whole market, is Colgate, and 30% is this product. So what's the other 15%?
You have a variety of products, mainly products that specialize in whitening or anti-plaque buildup. But we want you to know that even if you change Colgate Total, it can still be marketed as an anti-gingivitis product. And if you really would like to keep antibacterials in there, we have found an alternative that will cost you 20 cents more per bottle of toothpaste, and you can put that in. But we also would like to consider that it costs $1.85 per tube of toothpaste to use triclosan in your product. It's only 2 cents a tube of toothpaste if you just use the sodium fluoride. So that's another thing to consider financially.
What were those two numbers?
$1.85 per tube and 2 cents.
I think as a similar follow-on, I think the distinguishing factor for us here in the product has been the fact that we've been able to comprehensively say with our pilot 70-some studies that this clearly does fight gingivitis better than any other product in the market. I think that's probably been the distinguishing factor that's resulted in $3.6 billion of sales. So I guess the question that I would have would be more of what's the pipeline of replacement products, both in the R&D development phases at P&G and outside. I see our real exposure is that if a competitor of ours comes up with a friendlier, an environmentally friendlier ingredient than the triclosan that we're using, that the whole world will know about all the bad stuff about us on the website, because that's the very first thing I would market in trying to market a product against us. So the real question is, are we ahead of our competitors in potentially finding a product where we don't even have to say, oh, good news, marketplace, we've replaced this dangerous chemical with something else. We just continue to market ourselves as the most effective, so where are we in our pipeline, and are we exposed with development pipelines of other competitors of ours who might be farther along to be able to market against us?
Well, I'm not particularly certain as far as where you are on your research of other products. What we do know is that the trend has been to re-emphasize Colgate Total as it is now with triclosan. So you keep doing studies that reaffirm triclosan, so that gives me the hint that you're not incredibly far along in finding other products. So there is this other product, but it's incredibly costly. And in the course of our research, we haven't done anything else that any other companies have even looked into that would replace triclosan completely as something that kills.
So it would then be fair to say that since our competitors are aware of this more expensive product, that they don't think that it's financially viable for them to put that in their product and be able to compete with us. I'm not sure why it would be financially feasible for us to be able to replace it in our product and hope to maintain our market share.
Yeah, I mean, the trend that we've seen is that no other competitors have even put in triclosan in the first place, since it does cost $1.85 for a tube of toothpaste. So that to them may not seem financially viable. So if you're the only company doing that and you have great sales of Colgate Total, and that's kind of your staple toothpaste, reinventing your staple toothpaste to be much cheaper for you, even if sales drop, your revenues could remain the same.
Our profits on our revenues.
You mentioned the studies that were looked at animals, but there is no study that you're suggesting that is looking at humans.
The FDA study is the one that's looking at humans right now, and that's currently under investigation to be published at the end of the spring, which is arriving soon. And the studies have not been on humans so far.
Would it be a recommendation that we probably take a preemptive strike at putting a warning label on our product, on this particular product?
Your product contains the general toothpaste warning label for your customers not to swallow the product and to call the Poison Control Center if they do. However, we would like to see a product that is not dangerous for your customers, and we don't think it's, while it would ethically be better to tell your customers that this could be harmful, to directly warn them of the dangers and give them that better education and freedom of choice. That might not be the best way to market your product, is to label it with the market your product, is to label it with these warning labels as seen in other countries.
If you're concerned about sales, then I think putting a warning label on your product would almost be worse than switching it out for something else.
I guess part of the difficulty I have is your impression that all of the studies that we fund is just papering over our knowing use of a dangerous chemical, or do we not firmly believe that it's the best product available, and there really is an ethical dilemma for us in this situation?
Well, I mean, that's why you came to us. You asked us to reevaluate this so that we could give our take on it. So yes, it is the most effective in killing gingivitis in your mouth. But what your studies and what all of your research hasn't looked at is the potential harm.
Okay.
So You haven't even made one study that looks to the potential harm of your customers.
Is there an ethical issue facing us as the board? That I've been on this board for some time. This is the first I've heard about this risk, literally the first I've heard. And as far as transparency on this issue, are we like Zycam or the tobacco companies where there's increasing evidence, things on the internet, letters that we have, are there legal cases, and is there a transparency issue or a potential cover-up issue facing us today?
I think that some of the danger lies in the fact that you've put a lot of money recently into advertising your 75 studies. And in this sudden burst of advertisements, if the timeline's looked at later, they could come back to you and say, why, as the FDA was just about to publish their findings, did you start marketing this product? And we think that in terms of really trying to look into it yourself to figure out if it's dangerous, that you haven't fulfilled your obligations to your customers.
Yeah, there's definitely a transparency issue already as far as your website or even calling into your helpline and asking about triclosan. If you call into Colgate and you ask them about triclosan, they quote exactly what's on the website. And what's on the website, what exactly does it say?
What's on the website has one frequently asked questions that asks, is triclosan an endocrine disruptor? And your response on the website is, there are no human studies that currently say it is an endocrine disruptor. And true, it's honest, but it's hiding something. And that's not the transparency we'd like to see. And in your mission statement that emphasizes the highest ethical values and that really wants to get to know what the customers want, you're not helping the customers know what you want. And that's the transparency issue.
Yeah. For us, it's an issue of we want you to provide the correct information and the information that they should know instead of them going on the internet and trying to find it out themselves. Because there are some very, very exaggerated things on the internet. And there are some things that are true that a customer who would look to you for that won't know the difference between the exaggerated and the true.
I'd like to follow up on Daniel's question about the competition, because just the other day I saw a Crest ad on television that was, and I haven't had a chance to look into this, and so I have no idea what they're saying, but they said, use this, and it may be a new kind of Crest, but use this for 4 weeks and you'll see a significant change as far as gingivitis goes. Do you know anything about that? And if they aren't using, I'm sure they aren't using, I can't believe they're using triclosan, but if they aren't using triclosan, what would be the basis of a claim like that? And does that pose any danger to us that would suggest either way we move more aggressively against using triclosan or hang tough and continue to use it?
Sure. As of Wednesday, Crest did not have any products that contained any antibacterial as far as toothpaste. Their mouthwashes do contain some antibacterial agents in the intention that you rinse and then spit them out. But as far as this product that you would use for 4 weeks, I can only imagine that they're using a sodium fluoride-based toothpaste trying to prevent the bacteria that cause gingivitis from growing in the first place. Yours is the only product that is a treatment-based product where it's killing 2 types of bacteria that cause gingivitis. Although there actually have been studies now that are coming out saying that it may not be the most effective thing to fight. Triclosan may not be the most effective thing to fight gingivitis, and it says that triclosan only kills bacteria effectively that are the short bacteria kinds, but not the longer ones. And they're finding that in studies where they've grown these 2 types of bacteria in petri dishes, it's not directly effective in killing every type of bacteria. So now, as the chemicals not only potentially harming your customers, but might not be the most effective, that's...
Yeah.
So let me ask this. If Crest is not using an antibacterial, and presumably then we can continue to market, if we take triclosan out, we can continue to market triclosan as an anti-gingivitis toothpaste. What can we say that's truthful without exaggerating? Because that's now part of my concern. If I can appreciate, okay, one ethical issue here is protecting our consumers, but But now I want to make sure we continue to be seen as the anti-gingivitis toothpaste. So what can we say that's absolutely truthful?
You can safely tell your customers that if they brush morning and night with your toothpaste, they will not develop gingivitis as long as they're properly nourished, as long as they have generally good health. They're going to remain healthy, and that your toothpaste allows for them to have a healthy mouth, a healthy body.
But could we say, for example, let's say we remove triclosan, could we say Colgate Total has protected more mouths from gingivitis over X number of years than any other toothpaste?
And ending last week.
Well, no, we don't say that. We just say, could we say that honestly and lump in the non-triclosan with triclosan?
You can honestly say that because triclosan does help kill the bacteria that cause gingivitis, and preventing it both through preventing the bacteria a surface from growing on and killing the bacteria once they're there are both ways of fighting gingivitis in this disease. It's caused by having bacteria in your mouth. So you can say that from the time we started with just our sodium fluoride toothpaste to the time when we introduced this antibacterial, and now as we're going back and really looking at what's great for our customers, whatever new products we produce, we are still fighting gingivitis and we are still working for our customers to give them a healthy mouth.
But would have a harder time using that product to differentiate against our competitors because there's really functionally no difference between our toothpaste and theirs. Right? So, I mean, if you were to line up the ingredients side by side, then everyone would say, yeah, well, us too.
Yeah, I think that's where your research team needs to come up with something else. So
Right.
you've been very invested in triclosan for a long time, and I think now where you're reaching the point where you may have to remove triclosan from your products, and that's what we suggest, I think it's kind of putting you a step behind if you haven't been continuously trying to improve. You kind of got safe with triclosan and you felt comfortable, so you weren't looking into other things to continuously improve your products like you values say you should be doing.
So has there been any public comment or any early disclosure of what the FDA findings are likely to be?
There's speculation, but it's entirely speculation.
Let me ask this in a somewhat different way, because let's assume that we take triclosan out, and obviously I'm concerned about preserving jobs. So if we run a new ad campaign, and we have someone holding up the tube of toothpaste in the campaign that says, and this is new total, we don't say new total, we just say, this tube of toothpaste, now this happens to be the new non-triclosan, this tube of toothpaste has protected more mouths over the last 30 years than any other toothpaste. Now it's the non-triclosan tube that I'm trying to sell. Is there anything dishonest or less than completely transparent about that? Because I figure if consumers will buy that, we get to keep jobs. But
Yeah, there's definitely something wrong with that. I think what you would be safe to say is Colgate products targeting gingivitis have been effective for the past 30 years. And so our collective line of anti-gingivitis toothpaste have been successful in fighting gingivitis in more mouths than any other toothpaste or any other line of anti-gingivitis toothpastes. You can't say specifically that this bottle is responsible for that because you don't want to advertise that bottle anymore. I mean, then that's agree. Yeah.
okay. Unfortunately, we need to wrap things up and shift gears. So at this point, I'd like to ask the judges to offer comments, identify what you saw as strengths in the presentation and areas where it could be improved. Oh, before we get into that, could you tell us what sections Jake would have been handling, just as information?
Jake did the introduction and he did the legal information. So
Okay,
he
just
would have
so that
talked
the
about
judges-
technology and the specifics of the countries.
And
which
the
I wasn't.
start as well.
Yes,
Yeah, he
And
did
the
the
opening.
introduction.
Okay. Eric, shall we start with you, please?
Overall, with that, there's a couple of things I want to mention. Megan, watch grabbing your shirt.
Sorry, it's a
No.
little too small.
Yeah, but I noticed it was either, I thought you were nervous, and yet I noticed you didn't
habits that are, and my mom's back there, so she used to make me hold a ball when I was in the car so I wouldn't like click the switches.
Hold the side of the podium.
Right, yeah, okay. Hold
Yeah.
that side of the podium.
And then,
Be careful not to drag it out around the stage.
or even as a biology major.
Wow.
Yeah, very well done. You also came off very well polished.
Thank you.
I like the fact that you, for me, it was clear who we were, who you guys were. There were kind of when you came out and talked about, you laid out what is Cracklosin, because I had no idea what it was. I like the fact that you presented the Nalgene, the bottle,
Yeah.
which for me, number one, I'm not a Colgate user at all. But the bottle was a concern because the moment I had a bottle and I knew what it was, I stopped using the bottle. But when the company came out with the new other product in it, the BPA, I went out and just bought a new bottle. So I understand what you were trying to do, and that drove the point home for me as a person of being environmentally friendly, health conscious and stuff.
Kind of gave us a roadmap for a way out of this.
Yes.
And it's actually worked in the real world.
And then I also liked your nasal or whatever it was, the congestive or.
Zycam,
The Zycam.
spray.
Yes. As for numbers, you threw out the number, and I don't know if it was 45 million, 50 million, 55 million.
Yeah.
I was thinking there would have been a slide to show the numbers,
Okay.
one showing the success, one showing a decrease in the profit if there was one. That way you can actually hammer home that.
Okay.
And also the 1 point, the $1.85 for the, was it 3 cents?
Sure.
But that was a number, that's just not saying there should be a slide, but.
Okay.
But when one of us has to ask again, I think it was maybe it's not clear too fast.
Okay.
And then for the ethical, as we're trying to shake you from your tree, you actually held on very nicely. But there were, I guess the question I was thinking is, you had mentioned for the legal, and I guess your colleague would have actually mentioned this, you had mentioned that almost at the end, take some kind of action for the recommendation. But then I didn't know what action were we leading up to until you stepped in and provided with the next slide of recommendations, which was remove the product, the chemical, and the practice. But my question would have been, should we actually, because the FDA is coming out with doing their thing, should we do an internal study? Because, don't get me wrong, I like the federal government, but with data can actually be looked at in many different ways and interpreted in many different ways. And while we brought up the idea of looking at animals, well, yeah, if I shove a bunch of toothpaste down an animal, depending on the size of the animal, I'm going to change, the variations of the variables. And besides, an animal look different than human.
And they never don't have gingivitis.
Yeah.
Healthy lips on this fish.
And at what point does that product dissipate? I mean, eventually the product will eventually dissipate
I
within.
thought that was better. I thought that was better.
But it was.
Yeah, I thought that point was made.
But it was just something.
Yeah, just a couple of little things on the presentation process. You were even just doing it now. Don't bring a pen with you to the.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
I was watching your baton practice there, and it was really distracting for a while. On the just on the slides and everything, it was a little clunky. So I would think about either having a clicker or having one of your partners at the table do the slide changing, or else at the very least make sure that the laptop is set up close enough to you that you don't have to walk away from the mic to hit the button and walk back to the mic.
What happened to the
You know, And so you'll find out which way works best for you. You know, some people just like to have one of their partners handle the slides change, so all they have to do is deal with, you know, talking.
Yeah.
And after you've rehearsed this together enough, everyone will know when it needs to happen. The other thing, Megan, that you need to be real careful of is, especially since you've got the laptop in front of you, you don't need to turn and look at the screen. And every time you do, it's subtle. You won't hear it from up there, but you come off mic.
Okay.
And so we keep losing you as you turn and look at the screen. And you don't need to, because the screen's right in front of you. You don't have to turn away from us to see what's there. So I would work on that piece. Let's see here. And, oh, just one other thing, and those of us who sat through a million slideshow presentations, I mean, you know, we just know what to expect is coming next. But the slide with the pie chart on it, it stayed on the screen way past the time it was relevant, even through your transition. So even if you need to put a placeholder slide or something up there, when it's no longer relevant, I kept looking at the slide and I kept thinking about the number and I wasn't paying attention to what you were saying anymore.
Okay.
You know, so sometimes you even just need to put a placeholder there, anything, just get it off the screen when you're done with it.
Okay.
And then just one other thing, the one thing that you stated in there, which I thought was really interesting, was just about how there was the instance where there was recommendations that the chemical not even be used anywhere but in a hospital. I'd have loved to have had a citation for that. It says, where'd that come from?
Yeah,
It's because if I find out that that's from a government agency in another country, I'm getting real
That
nervous
was
about that
in-
FDA finding.
That was
I
the,
had it on the slides,
It was
it just didn't get put into
Norway
my
and-
Right, but I would
Yeah,
actually
it
put
was-
it on the slide.
Okay.
Because if it's from a meaningful source, one that we should be concerned about, like I say, if a regulatory agency in the Eurozone made that recommendation, I'm real nervous about what the FDA is gonna say now, because it's pretty obvious they're probably gonna conclude the same thing.
Okay.
You know, so just give a little weight, because it was a weighty comment, but give it the weight of where it came from.
Okay.
And other than that, it was very well done, especially, it's really hard to open from the bullpen, so when your opener isn't here, that's a hard task to take on at the last second, so that was well done.
Yeah, as far as your overall topic, boy, you really picked something that's close to home to your audience. You know, hopefully we're all brushing our teeth and doing it twice a day.
I have it in the cupboard at home, but
I
I
was
never
using
heard of this
Total.
concept before, so it freaks me out a little
So
bit.
it does freak out your audience a little bit, which is really good. I mean,
Yeah.
so great choice on the topic. And as far as, it's even something you put in your mouth, you know, so then you
Yeah.
just stuff about it says on the thing that, you know, don't swallow this, call it. Yeah,
Don't swallow
I think I'm home with it
I
today,
know.
which, always start with the presenters first. I thought you guys were very good, and, you know, as far as nervous habits and that sort of thing, considering where you are in life, you know, don't become paranoid. I would say the whole thing, you know, if there's any nerves or anything like that, you guys are already on the upper end of presenters, and so, you know, just kind of honing that is something, keep heading that direction. It's really good. One of the suggestions about holding on the podium, I'm a bit nutso about people who have noises that transmit through the microphone. And if you're on a conference call or on a podium and you can touch the podium, I was picking up some of that noise.
I heard a little of that too.
Yeah, some of the, you know, just a hand that was kind of, you know,
Okay.
on the side of the thing. So anyway,
Just
just
tap it
remember.
or something.
Yeah.
Don't touch anything.
Yeah, well, but then that's gonna make you more nervous, so that's not good either. So I just throw that out there though, but I did pick up the microphone noise. As far as like who you guys are, I just thought as far as the roles, we had Sarah the scientist. And I don't know if you were role playing that or that's just how you are. It's
That's-
perfect.
I'm a biomajor chemistry minor.
That's-
so
Exactly,
that's
so
how
it's
she is.
biochemistry thing, and the furrowed brow as you're genuinely concerned about the health of the consumer and all that sort of
That was
stuff.
very
Perfect.
convincing.
Very, very, very convincing. So I thought that was good. And then kind of getting into the whole thing about Megan, the microeconomist and English major, that did come across as far as the trade-off between your talents. Was good to see a team that has multiple disciplines. I don't know how it was.
I actually, Jake was film for the
Production
longest
and
time. I was an econ and English major.
Yeah, so at that point, having the multiple disciplines to me, I thought was really excellent. Just Just a couple of quick points on top of what my compatriots have said here. The triclosan building up in the fish, I got quite a bit of that, and then we even came back to it one time. I don't know if you noticed that, but there was a direct repeat of a message that was earlier, and you're already constrained for time. So there's a place you could pick up sometime, is on the buildup in the fish, particularly the second reference. I just felt like I'd heard that before. And then when it does build up in the fish, something we didn't go into was, is there an environmental issue? Or I think you actually did touch on it. It gets into the food chain and goes up that way, the algae, the fish, and that sort of. So maybe not even an issue. When you first introduced triclosan and treating gingivitis, it left me wondering, as far as continuous improvement and the wonders that we are working for mankind, how serious is gingivitis? If that's something you could handle in 20 seconds or less, the gingivitis is terminal to some people, or it's really a serious problem. It also causes heart disease, or those kinds of things.
Well, your website does try. Well, sorry, you're not Colgate anymore. Colgate's website does try to link it
She's still in.
to heart disease and to all these things. They have places on your the Colgate website
That's what I'm
where
saying.
they have places on the Colgate website where you can click on your heart or your muscles, and you can see how you're linking all the good benefits of the anti-gingivitis to other diseases. But in truth, that's more of generally being healthy and having healthy habits than actually fighting.
So maybe
gingivitis.
something in your, to Dan's earlier point about staying on one slide, for a while, if you flip through a few slides where you didn't make it distracting, but it was choreographed with the remarks about your website already shows A and B and C as the slides are kind of going by. That might be kind of good. At the same time, your audience in an ethics competition is going, wow, I'm going to go home and read my toothpaste bottle.
People will log on to the site when they go home too.
Oh, yeah.
They will.
And that was the other thing I wondered is if I was the board and you were really trying to shake up the board members, and you did yesterday's Google search, something really current for each time that you do your talk. You say yesterday's Google, and you put it. I've learned not to do live things in key presentations. But what I do is I store it like in a PDF or actually just in an image right in the PowerPoint where it just comes out. I go, here is yesterday's Google search with these kinds of really scary.
It's really alarming. If you type Colgate total triclosan, the first 5 are government websites saying, don't worry, we're investigating this.
Yeah, and the word investigation and all that. So I thought maybe a real slide on that, and maybe a real slide of the toothpaste of our own product. We're on the bottle that has the tube that has the tiny print.
We have
and if you blew that up, just take a picture on your iPhone, throw it into your PowerPoint.
Your point, I think it would be really interesting if you had something that was real obvious. If you had that Google search that just said triclosan dangers,
right,
and then it says 171,000
million
hits.
hits in 1.2 seconds.
It's really amazing.
Right, and you put the 2 words right together. It's triclosan danger.
There are specific law firms that specialize in triclosan lawsuits.
That's another ethics presentation.
But actually, it would be a key point of yours to just a throwaway point that already, there are these kinds of lawsuits forming. And that's one thing in these kinds of presentations on a board. A lot of focus is on strategy, but the word risk is all over in boardrooms now, and risk management. And when you have an emerging risk that is being addressed by the lawyers, but not the scientists down in the lab, then those are the kinds of issues the board sits up and takes notes.
And given your mix of majors, it's a little difficult, and given the fact that you're talking to some guys that are CPAs and other things, it's a little harder. But I thought the weakest part of the presentation was just the financial risk rewards were really not well quantified. It really wasn't obvious to me how much of that $3.6 billion is at risk, and what happens if we do nothing, and what happens if we do something.
Yeah.
And I understand that. I mean, it's a difficult task because of you guys' areas of interest and things. It's going to be a harder thing, but it's got to be a huge number. So.
Yeah, we
I'm-
could
I-
definitely do more than that.
I
Yeah.
would agree, because I'm looking at it as if as I said, I don't buy the product in the first place. And I just don't care for the product. But as a member of the board, I'm thinking, if the current trends are still, we're able to beat our competitor, and this is only a small percentage of the toothpaste, I'm looking at it as, if we change, we become like everybody else, what happens to our market share? And the byproduct of the Nalgene model, I could see that there was an upsale. More people had this idea, oh, there's a product that's environmentally friendly. But how do we bridge that gap for our toothpaste?
Yeah.
That was what I was thinking, is how do we get across that and say, oh, look how great they are for us and the environment, but let's go with them. And I know that there's a market out there, it's just how do we tap into that
Yeah.
while holding on to our base?
So that was part of what I was trying to get at with the final set of questions about how we can then talk about the product honestly, but still capitalize on the reputation of the product. Because it does two things. First of all, it shows that you're thinking ahead on helping us out if we follow your recommendation. We need a strategy about what to do in order to minimize the downside. It also, though, then brings up another ethical issue that, as I was trying to show, it's like, well, what we really want to do is not lose ground, but now we can't fudge the truth. But it was one thing, with BPA and non-BPA, but if we aren't even going to say, we aren't going to say non-triclosan on our toothpaste. But we don't want to say, yeah, just like everybody else. Who's going to buy that? So it becomes one of the challenges that you have for, it was a very effective presentation on the risk and getting us to see, yeah, this is a problematic substance. But then help us out with the next step.
Yeah.
Because even though we didn't ask you what the next step was, all we asked you was reevaluate this substance. Give us something for free and say, let's assume you want to do this. You're sitting there thinking, okay, we see the risks. There are risks of jobs, there are risks of lost sales. You're probably wondering how you might proceed. We're going to suggest something. And so then tell us what it is. Now, also, if you could find any information out on the financial impact on, overall you talked about the financial impact on the Nalgene and Zycam thing. But if you had something that then we could see that showed, even if you could sort of track, I don't know, sales or anything, or profitability on those two companies, so that we could see, Nalgene does, like up to this point, they made the announcement, there may be a little dip in sales, and now everything is fine. But something visual that reassures us that if we take that path, which is what you're recommending, that we'll be okay, that we don't have that much of that 3.6 billion, and by the way, put dollar signs on that. That we don't have that big a risk on that. So I think that anything of that sort would definitely help. A couple of other small points. Obviously, you did really well, particularly handling Jake's portion in as well. You want to, and as Scott mentioned, you're already kind of on the high end of professionalism on this. You want a little more energy into the presentation, but also relax. And Sarah, while your scientific seriousness works, relax. You look worried so much that you just need to relax and have a good time without being frivolous about it. But I kept thinking, man, you just seem worried so often. Relax. But overall, very good job. I found it a very persuasive argument. Megan, I thought your answer on the very first question about the jobs versus risk of harm was very good, because that's what it is. It's a dilemma, and you have to say, yes, it's a dilemma, and you're going to have to pick, and this is what we recommend. So I was very glad that you didn't fudge it and avoid it. You said, okay, if we have to make a choice, this is what this choice we make, and this is why. And you related it back to the mission statement of the company and the values. And as a board member, I'm sitting here thinking, yeah, if we have choices, we live by our values. We don't say, gee, now they're inconvenient. So I thought that was a very effective use of the value statement.
They're subtle and small things, and I understand a lot of what we're talking about here is really tiny around the edges, and one thing that one of us might think would be better, another one's going to say, no, actually that was my favorite part. So you got to also kind of take that as, this is your presentation, you have to be comfortable with what you're doing. But on some of the answers, you almost uniformly, you both started with, well, I think, and then you gave really definitive answers. So if you just instead, whenever someone asks you a question, start, we found,
Yeah.
or our research,
Or the evidence.
the evidence was, you could say the exact same thing afterwards, and we're going to believe you a lot more than if you say, I think.
Okay.
We're paying you a lot per hour, so you can be authoritative.
And your answers were very authoritative after we got past this. Why are they hedging their bets about this? I mean, that was a really good answer.
I'm sitting here and right at the beginning, I'm not joking. I think it was less than 2 minutes into your presentation, I was already thinking, what are we doing with this chemical product? So from my point of view, I'm already thinking, how do we get rid of it
Safely.
safely? But again, for me, it was just building a bridge.
And the final point on Daniel's point about the kind of soft way into answers. This is one of the things that goes with being a bright, accomplished woman. Women are taught to kind of talk down and to ease in. It's one of those things you're just going to have to work against.
Okay.
I'm serious. It's part of the culture. It's this double standard, and you're just going to have to get comfortable being straightforward and not hedging into the, well, I think, It's a professional hazard. Go in there, kick ass. I mean, it's just,
I noticed that on the recommendation, that as you were building up to like the big moment, the recommendation, and what you said was, everyone down, what we want you to do is, and you're personalizing at that point. And in a board level presentation, it's like our recommendation, it's a slight change in terminology, but the soft point about, well, and what we want you to do is, and you kind of got a bit soft on that, I think that was you maybe, and what we want you to do is.
Yeah, see, and I have that in quotes.
So just say,
Yeah.
our recommend, okay.
Yeah, and then be crisp on that recommendation, and I thought you tied it back very nicely to core values, but there was a bit of space until you came back to the continuous improvement. You could have built that right into the recommendation is remove the doggone chemical and tie that back to your core value, almost in the same breath. That's how I would, kind of a feel-good point, like, it reinforces your recommendation.
Because by the time we got to that point, you had pretty much already convinced us of what the obvious conclusion was.
Right.
So you don't need to apologize for your conclusion. I mean, you pretty much led me to that conclusion by the time we got to the end. So just did us over the head one last time. And
Right, and that's before you show us the Google search page and the warning label on the back of the book.
Because if you don't move it, this is what your customers will see.
Yeah.
okay, well, I'm sorry to have to wrap things up. We have another team coming up. I'd like to thank you, team.